What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today, we're going to talk to you about T2. I want to go over some of the data points, what's been coming out, and just talk on what is next and what could be done. I do see some people talking about a buyback, so I also want to just talk on if that's realistic or not. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did close 3.8%. Quite the roller coaster. It did have a high of around 644. A new 52-week and all-time low was also created during Power Hour, unfortunately. So $5.40 was the low. When it comes down to volume, 1.25 million shares being traded, 1.3 is the average. So the volume definitely has been still staying up there. At the time of doing this video, there has been no recent PR. There was a new Form 4 that did come out after hours yesterday, which does show Adam's Laura Lee, who is a director, did convert some of the restricted stock to common stock. It was only obviously after the reverse stock split. Probably killed this quite significantly. So they only got 7 shares, but still, again, nothing really, this isn't really positive, isn't really negative. It's just kind of neutral, especially 7 shares, not really much to really bring up when it comes down to that. But still, moving on, like I said, there has been no actual news. So a lot of people are just speculating on what is coming next. And I'll give you a quick overview of some of the things that you need to know, including options. Oddly, when it comes to options, they still have not kicked off the new chains, which is very, very delayed. Typically, a lot of other stocks that once they undergo a reverse stock split, usually it takes about 1 to 2 days of a lag time before a lot of the market makers make new chains. But oddly, in T2's case, it's been a week and a bit now. And it is very odd to see that the volume still being very high despite no options activity. Because typically what people do, and what a lot of the bigger players, they kind of hedge with options and then they do what they will throughout the trading day. So they bring the stock price down, they bring it up, and then when it comes to the options, they benefit quite significantly from that. But with there being no options, it's kind of stuck in limbo right now. And once again, as I've signaled, if you are one of those individuals that did have T2 options prior to the reverse stock split, you just need to contact your broker. They're going to be making a custom chain for you where you can either hold it or essentially sell it. And since they obviously did a 1-for-100 reverse stock split, it is fair to assume that your broker is going to just kind of convert it down to 1 share versus 100, but you never know. Obviously every broker does things differently. So contact them and find out exactly what they are doing. But as far as these are some of the transactions that have occurred as of late on the secondary market, over $100,000. So the last being on October the 13th. So nothing really recent, unfortunately. And so that does signal that there's just been a lot of smaller transactions with T2. So big money isn't necessarily getting in. They might be waiting potentially until the rubber stamp from the NASDAQ. And there was this tweet that did come out from TCAP, so Taylor Trader 923. And so he talks on a lot of the near-term catalysts, such as the NASDAQ $1 compliance. He does say next Thursday, so October the 26th, that's going to be their 10 consecutive days. And that's just the minimum, just so you're aware. So this technically isn't 100% accurate, only because the NASDAQ does ultimately determine whether it is between 10 to 20 consecutive business days. So just stating it is 10, not necessarily the most accurate. And what I've seen with the NASDAQ as of late, with a lot of companies that do have better balance sheets than T2, they've been requiring them at least 15 days. So once again, kind of stuck in limbo a little bit. We just don't know what the NASDAQ is or isn't going to pick when it comes down to that. But don't use the 10-day as a benchmark. It is better to have obviously 20 days in the back of your mind. That way, it's kind of the best case scenario. But no matter what, I do agree that NASDAQ compliance is going to be a very good catalyst, and most likely a lot of bigger players are waiting until that compliance does come in. And even aside from that, there is a lot of good potentials for the actual operational aspect of the business. So they did submit this, so the new T2 resistance 510K submission. So that came out the same day as their earnings, I do recall, or after hours, whatever else. And aside from that, at government contracts. So even though there hasn't been essentially any noted yet, there has been clearly a lot of hints towards that. So once again, I think that there is a lot of good potentials for T2, but still a lot of people want to know what is coming next. So some people, this is on Reddit, so some people are saying like, is a buyback a option? So based on the last earnings, I think they had around 23.5 million in cash and cash equivalents. So in theory, yes, a buyback is always an option in every circumstance. Typically, a buyback is only done for profitable companies, so it's not really going to help the NASDAQ aspect at all. It'll help them stay above $1, but with it at $5 right now, I don't think that's really a concern. I'm not a financial advisor, of course, so make sure you guys always do your own due diligence. But when it comes down to the market cap being 18.23 million, and with them having 23.5 million in cash and cash equivalents, they could definitely spare maybe 2.5 million essentially that could be thrown towards the stock price, and that would definitely really help. But once again, as far as if they do that, I'm not really sure. You also have to factor in their burn rate. So based on the recent earnings incorporated, they are burning through a pretty significant amount of money from their operations. So as far as a buyback, if that is the next logical step for T2 to do, I wouldn't say so. Maybe if they were close to the $1 mark and they needed the stock price to go up just to ensure that they do get NASDAQ compliance, then yes, maybe a buyback might be a viable option. But as it stands, how much they're burning through, I don't think that would be the wisest decision. But once again, I could be wrong. But other than that though, just to give you a quick overview of what shorts have been doing and everything else, short score is 74, utilization is 86.52. Still a pretty significant amount of volume is attributed to shorts. So just based on Friday, around 762,000 shares were attributed overall to shorts. And given that 1.25 million were for the total volume for the day, still, like I said, just shorts are completely ingrained. Obviously, as a result of the whole reverse stock split, Ortex is still having a glitch behind the system, so it does show 0 shares were kind of really involved, so maybe they are having a difficult time of tracking things right now. And typically though, especially when it comes down to reverse stock splits like Faraday Future and Mullen, it does take normally Ortex to really update around 2 days. So even this is kind of extreme, similar to what I mentioned with the options. So once again, let me know your thoughts on T2 in the comments below. Have you been buying, selling, holding? What have you been doing? And do you see things going lower, higher? What's your kind of viewpoint on all of that? As far as the technicals with it at $5.45, it is currently between this S2 and this S1, which isn't too bad considering a lot of the growth stocks over the later part of the week have been completely slammed. So majority of them are between this S3 and this S2, but $5.37 is a very strong support, and vice versa, $5.60 is going to be the next strong resistance point. So these are some of the resistance and supports aside from the closest ones that you just need to watch for. So with it at 644 being the high, it was actually trading between this R1 and the R2, which isn't bad in comparison, like I said, to the broader market. So let me know your thoughts on T2. Give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, selling, holding, what you have been doing with T2. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And one final thing, take advantage of this promo just recently launched, effective today. So sign up for an account with Moomoo, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of this. Link in the description below and also the comments. And with all that said, I appreciate all of you watching.